it's just the objects. It's like the sleds and like the tools, but no humans, no bones.
Ooh, but they find a dog.
Okay.
The dog has been like exploded into 1 million pieces, but like stuck in the ice. Or maybe just like a hand or something.
How do they know it's a dog?
Well, it's got a collar on.
I just imagine a guy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that's a dog," and it's just like a puddle of blood. And it's like, what do you mean, man? It's got to be a dog.
Fur.
Welcome to StoryFellas, a podcast where we make stories and we break stories. I'm your host, Tommy Antonucci.
And I'm Zach Lovelace. Also,
Zach, how are you doing? He's just some guy who wandered in.
Yeah.
He's just here.
Just a guy. I gave my name.
Just a guy.
Tommy has a gun and he's pointing it at me. Obviously.
There would be, I admit, tell stories, man. I'm somewhat whispery because I'm up at the crack of dawn before everyone else, trying to not.
That's when we record
with my
people.
screams.
We record at the
That's
crack
when
of
we
dawn.
Record. Yep. Wake up at 1 a.m. and then we're like, let's tell. This is the best time. It's not that early.
I wake up at 1 a.m. or would I just stay up till 1 a.m.?
We don't sleep on the days we're going to record. We just
decide
that that's better for the podcast.
I'm too excited.
Zach, how have you been?
I've been
How's
good.
life?
Life is good. We have our company Christmas party today, so I'm excited to just ride off into the sunset. We're done working for the year, so we have a week off and don't go back till the 2nd. So I'm like worry free at the moment, and
nice.
Working on a lot of other things. So a lot of time for personal projects, which is great. But what about you, man? You're obviously in your parents' basement.
Yeah, I'm in my parents' basement. I live here now. This is probably going to date the episode because we're talking about pre-Christmas stuff, but that's where life is right now. We are visiting my folks for the Christmas holiday. I do not have off, unfortunately. I'm going to be working remote for a couple of days, wrapping up some projects and loose ends, and then we'll have the Christmas break, and it'll be great. So it's nice to kind of have a change of location and scenery. So excited about that. It'll be fun.
Yeah, dude.
But that does not mean we are guaranteed to tell a Christmas story. That would be funny if we randomly ended up telling a Christmas story, but
out of season, whenever you're listening to this, listener.
Yep. Yeah. Merry Christmas to whenever you are listening to this. Like, it's July. But Zach, I thought we would return to our story game and see if we can create something from scratch, given some rough ideas, and build our Jenga tower.
Oh, man.
From a very wobbly base.
Yes. I live for this. This is why I'm up so early. It actually is a lot of fun.
I'm going to give you the prompt and you just immediately hang up. No comment or anything. You're like, not that one. I'm not going to tell that story. Boring. So let's start this off. Can I get a 20-sided die roll from you to help us choose our prompt?
You ready?
Yeah, roll that.
Come on, Google Dice. 14.
14. Okay. All right. I like this one. This one is very open-ended, and I think we're going to I want to leave the genre just so that we can kind of play with that and lead wherever we want to go. This prompt is a simple one, but like I said, can take a lot of different directions. A compass that leads somewhere very specific.
A compass that leads somewhere very specific. Immediately gives me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes.
Yep, I know. So let's make our main character named Jack Sparrow. Let's just retell Pirates of the Caribbean.
But I really like pirates, so maybe we could do a pirate story.
It's definitely kind of rude. I'm sure when I wrote this, it was rooted in something in that, because obviously it's if you spoilers for pirates, if you don't know, Jack's compass leads to the thing he wants most. Bum bum bum.
Yep.
But I do see this being this could span across a lot of genres. Like I could see this being I don't want it to be what you want most.
Mm-hmm.
I think it needs to be like a specific, like a set thing. Like it's going to lead to a specific location, or it could like like there's like one specific thing that this compass was designed to do.
Now think about
and I can see this being a comedy or a drama, or like depending on how we wanted to, how serious of a tone we want to take this.
I immediately thought of Mount Everest because I'm thinking of people who use compasses, and I don't know if people on Everest really, I mean, they know where they're going. I don't know. I don't know if they really need the compass, but adventurers, hikers, whatever, people who are outdoors obviously are using compasses. But the nature of the thing really sounds like it's like a tracking thing, a mechanism, you know, a beacon of some kind, because it only goes one place.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like this could obviously be replaced by something that's a tracking device. If you wanted to go more sci-fi, it just has that kind of whimsical magic that it is a compass that for some reason points to one thing that it's leading to. Which I think something that will help define the story a bit more is this a thing that is this compass something that's known about? Because I could see it being like, if people know about it, they're trying to find the compass so that they can find whatever the thing is, kind of treasure hunter-esque. Okay.
So, because you're just telling me that people know what it is, and I like that a lot. It's in a museum, okay? And I imagine it's just, and what type of compass are we talking about? I guess I'll have to look up the specifics, but I'm thinking something from Antarctic explorers. I'm big into Antarctica. And so that's like fresh on my mind all the time. But there are a lot of lost expeditions down there. The Franklin expedition actually made a show called The Terror, which is like a fictionalized version of that, like how it all kind of went crazy. But you have it in this museum, this compass, and it's just sitting there one day and it's ticking. You know, it's like moving like this. For those who are listening, it's just going back and forth ominously. And maybe it's leading to whatever expedition that was lost, and somebody in the museum sees it, like a kid or something like that. So it's in somewhere public, but it's not it's not like known for being this way. It's just the person notices it, and that kind of starts the adventure.
Okay, I like that. I like the idea of like it's just a dead compass that starts ticking. I think that's an interesting visual that would help jumpstart the story. My immediate worry of it existing in a museum is that we just are telling national treasure. I think the first, well, I like that a lot, but I'm just trying, like, I like National Treasure. I like the half the movie is him trying to get the thing. The other half is him finding where it
whatever
leads.
The end thing is. Yeah.
So like we could do that similar, but if we spend half of the thing like of someone trying to break into this museum, I feel like it's going to feel too similar. Which we could avoid if we wanted to, like where it's not like in public display. Maybe it's like part of like a private collection, or it's like,
that's cool.
Oh, this was my grandfather's compass. It's broken beyond repair or whatever. If we wanted to avoid the kind of heist style of movie, which I'm not completely opposed about, I just would want to make it different enough that it has some unique qualities to it compared to National Treasure.
Now we're still very much in the foundation phase here, so we're nothing. The cement hasn't solidified, so we can we can pivot here with this idea a little bit, because I do feel like we're going to paint ourselves into the National Treasure corner. And even I have only seen it once, but the Uncharted movie even has a little bit of that. Where it's like
with Tom Holland,
and Mark Wahlberg has a little bit of that too, where I think he has some sort of something that is passed to him, like a map or something like that. Again, it's been a minute since I've seen it.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to worry too much because any treasure hunting movie kind of follows these beats. Even of course, Pirates of the Caribbean, to a degree, it's like you find the thing to help you find the map, and you have to struggle to get that, and then you struggle to find the thing. So I think that's just going to be a natural beats of treasure hunting movies.
I'm just hot swapping things in my mind, and I'm thinking, well, what if the compass was the treasure?
Oh, okay.
You know, because that is the
So,
trope, is like the compass. A compass is what it does. It's pointing you somewhere where you want to go. But what if that specifically, and maybe we go a little bit softer on it's pointing somewhere very specific. Maybe it is. Maybe it's stuck or something like that. And that's the whole point. It's like, it's not really moving at all. It's just, it was on this fated expedition and it got frozen and it's been stuck there ever since. That's just a part of what it is. But why is it special? Like, is it magical? Is it supernatural? Is it possessed? You know, what is it that makes it valuable?
I can see that. I feel like I think it still should point somewhere. I feel like the story hinges on it being actually leading to some direction, even if like we find out that the compass is a bigger part of the goal, then I think we still need to go on some sort of journey, and I think the compass is going to be the conduit to take us on said journey.
I have an idea. I do.
Okay,
I
cool.
do. And you're just making me think of ideas. So
Nice. That's what we're doing. That's
what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. So we finally made it to Mars. Okay. And there are rovers and people there exploring some of the ice caps. And as they, cut their way through the ice, they find something. And they find a compass and maybe a ship from Earth. Like that Franklin expedition that went missing is like lodged in the ice on Mars.
Is it specifically the Franklin expedition? Is it like
it could be a version of it? Like there are plenty of them that went missing, and
but this isn't like a spaceship. Like this is like human.
No, this is like a human ship.
Stuff.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Okay, I like that a lot. That really transitions this into like some weird sci-fi movie. Like, okay, so it's like a Mars expedition. They're exploring. So this is kind of like the like not super distant future, but kind of Matt Damon on The Martian future. Like it's basically our time period. It just we happen to be going to Mars too. All right, I like that. So does the whole story take place on Mars? Are we thinking? Is it kind of like a hub kind of thing? Like the people are in the hub and like weird stuff is happening on Mars. They're like, this shouldn't be happening. Maybe the compass does have they dig this stuff out. And they're like, holy cow, this is the stuff from an expedition X amount of years ago. Why is it here? There's no earthly reason it should be here. And they find that compass and then it has that moment it's like on the table of their little hub. Yeah. And then it start ticking. It starts ticking and starts pointing directions. And I like that. I think this is like this is the cement that you're laying right here. This is the base of the story. And they're calling back home. And obviously, I guess they can communicate with Earth. But this has like that weird, I feel like some movies exist like that where it's like a small crew in space dealing with like an alien, but this feels more mystery based than just like horror alien based. So how big's our crew, you think? Because they're going to be the main.
Like 10 folks. All right. You got some of your grunts, you got your mechanics, you have your scientists, people who have just gone, they just signed up just to be tested. Like I'm just a normal guy, but I signed up for this mission just so people could monitor what it's like to be a human on Mars.
Okay, cool. Maybe this is like the second or third trip to Mars in theory. Like it's not like this is the first one. Or well, I don't know. I like to think that they've kind of got their stuff together. Like The Martian, like they're still like ironing it out. It's like maybe they've had a few trips and they're like, all right, yeah, we know how life on Mars goes. Like we have a bit more technology and rovers and stuff. But then this is the first time they actually find this like weird level of they have the tools now to dig through this ice that they didn't have in the last expeditions.
Yeah, they were doing like ice poles or whatever they do in the Antarctic where they pull out the layers of ice and they're trying to just study how long it's been, how long the ice has been there. And maybe in one of those big cylinders, they pull out the compass and they're like, what? And they look down in there and they blast it open or whatever. And it was a big...
Is there like a dude frozen in there? There's like people frozen?
That's a good question. Are there people there? I feel like it's more mysterious to not have them.
It's just the objects. It's like
Yeah.
the sleds and like the tools, but no humans, no bones.
Ooh, but they
no
find
like
a
organic.
dog. But the
Okay.
dog has been like exploded into a million pieces,
Oh,
but like stuck in the ice.
So
Or maybe just like a hand or something.
How do they know it's a dog?
Well, it's got a collar on.
I just imagine a guy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that's a dog," and it's just like a puddle of blood. And it's like, what do you mean, man? It's got to be a dog.
Fur. No, but you know what I mean. Like it's been dissected. Is kind of my. It's like a
Gotcha.
vivisection. So from one angle you could see it, and it's like, oh, well, that was definitely. Have you ever been to like the bodies exhibit where they have all the bodies cut up in weird places and positions and stuff? Anyway.
Okay, I like that. So we kind of open up the Martian style. They are on Mars. We kind of meet the crew. They're all kind of chummy. They're all kind of they're doing their job. Some people are like tired. Some people are whatever. They get these tools. They're like, hey, we're going to head out to this thing. And they dig in the ice. They're joking around. They pull something out and they're like, there's something in there. And then they realize it's that compass. And they kind of look down and they realize there's more. And then maybe where it's like a hard cut to inside their hub, some of the stuff they've thought out. And there's like compass and tools. And then it's like the round table discussion of these guys. And they're like, and maybe they even have like a call, like a video. Well, they can't have a video call. There's like an 8-minute delay. But they're... Yeah, that's light speed for you, hindering our storytelling abilities. But yeah, they're having a discussion with them. Maybe they're sending messages back and forth to Earth and just being like, "Hey, this stuff is from Earth. This stuff is from years ago, and I have no idea why is this here." Yeah, I think that's a really intriguing setup for this story.
It is. I think we need to get to characters because that's where it's going to kind of bust open what happens character theme wise. Obviously, we're dealing with time. We're dealing with technology too. We have like this old technology plus the new technology. Just kind of still in the crazy high concept mind here. Having there's no people from the Antarctic exploration ship there. It's just the ship. I'm thinking maybe there was a portal or something that they found that opened up to the ice caps of Mars, and vice versa might happen, where the hyper technology of the NASA people, the portal opens up and they get sucked back to Earth.
Okay.
That might happen at some point. Like just looking ahead where, they unlock the mystery of the universe or whatever, and it drops them off in the Antarctic.
Just like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, in Interstellar.
Yeah.
I did think that with the compass, with the thing moving, and it's like, oh, of course.
But we're not talking Morse code. The compass is gonna lead somewhere. Maybe the compass leads somewhere that's like there's all this ice stuff and all this stuff going down, but the compass is not leading there. It's leading to somewhere nearby, somewhere else, like that someone eventually picks up on, and they're like, I think there's more to the story, and they go after where this compass is pointing.
Now, do compasses,
and they find,
would an Earth compass work on Mars?
I don't think it. I don't know. I'm not sciencey enough to know like if it would actually work, like a real compass would work. I imagine it would just. Oh man, I don't know. I would imagine it just kind of like lingers at a direction at some point. Because there's got to be some sort of magnetism.
So it would be pulling to whatever the strongest. Let's see. A compass on Mars would point north, but this doctor is saying it would be a very large compass. It would have to be a very large compass to be sensitive enough to the planet's magnetic orientation.
My thought is that this compass is like registered as broken, or it kind of just generally points, but it becomes very clear when something else is going on with it. Like it will start like shaking and like pointing this other direction, like frantically. So you know when it's just in its broken mode, and you know when it's in its revealing something mode.
That's fair. That's fair.
So, and maybe that's not always, like, maybe sometimes it will like act up when things are like, maybe when the portal opens, then it acts up and like it's trying to
Yeah, it's
point
like, I
somewhere.
think it's just pointing to the portal, that it's just trying to get people back to the portal. Like that's just would be the biggest magnetic thing around, because apparently Mars's magnetic field is 1/800th that of Earth's. So it's really super weak.
Yeah.
So that means the compass could do that, and people would notice it, and they would say like, "Oh, whoa, where's it pointing?"
Yeah. And I feel like they're obviously going to be looking at where all this ice is forming, all this stuff is. So it's, in my opinion, it seems like if the compass just points to where they already have the most interest, like there's not a lot of point to the compass. That's where I was thinking, like, maybe if it either it's trying to reveal something additional about that location, or it like is like more of like an alert, like, hey, the portal's happening, and they can figure out that that's what it's doing. Or if they take, like, I like the idea of it pointing somewhere not there, and they're like, some guy, some like mechanic or something is just like, I feel like we need to go over here, and they're like, dude, it's like all the stuff's going on over here, and it's like it takes him, and he discovers an extra level, like other technology that is not human or something.
I like that.
I don't know. We can revisit that, but I feel like if the compass is, they're like, oh, it's pointing to here. They're like, yeah, Greg, we're already here. We're already, it's the most interesting place on the planet. But let's talk about characters a little bit. I like the idea of a female captain. I think that could be cool. Like someone who's just like, I think female captains are fun when, like, in The Martian, in Treasure Planet. I think like that kind of, that kind of character. Like I kind of picture like that kind of Treasure Planet-esque character, maybe less like
cat-like
British cat. Yeah, like a cat. She's actually a cat. But yeah, a female captain. I'm trying to think of other like unique characters. I kind of feel like a natural way the story would go is someone would go crazy from this stuff. Like we kind of have an antagonist within the group. Seems very Matrix style, very... Yeah, if we wanted to go that route. Or the antagonist can be...
to like have that person, the kind of destruction within, which is another theme of the Antarctic explorations, is that, especially with the Franklin expedition, that they don't know what happened, but they think that they resorted to cannibalism at some point. So there would have been somebody that disagreed with that, I'm sure.
Yep, I'm sure. So are there any other specific types of characters you want to include in this group? We obviously 10 is a lot to focus on, but just filling some of them out.
Having a dual lead, or maybe not a dual lead, but a romantic thing going on, tension anyway, between the female captain and the captain of the mechanics. So a guy who's just more of a nuts and bolts guy. He just sees the world as it is, and he has very simple solutions for things. The world is mostly black and white, whereas she's more of the academic, diplomatic type person. He's just like, no, you don't realize it. This group is done. They have, at some point in the movie, they have consigned themselves to their fate. Like we can't reason with them. We have to just keep moving or whatever. These are just lines that are popping in my head. But I like the idea as well of, the educated person versus the uneducated person, even though they're both Martian astronauts. So, the difference between them.
I think it's not educated versus non-educated. I think it's just the way they think. I think it's
that's true.
A straight line thinker versus corkscrew thinker, to quote, what's his name? Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
And I think the mechanic guy might just see things more black and white, more see things as nails that need a hammer to solve. And I don't want to make him too just like stereotypically mechanic, but
another way it splits is idealistic versus like cynical. So you have the mechanic guy is like, sometimes an engine is just going to do something crazy for you. It's just going to blow up in your face, and there's no earthly reason why. And that's just the nature of the universe, is entropy. Like it's all going to fizzle out at some point. And maybe that's a little too hardcore philosophical, but she's more of the idealistic. Humans are generally good, and he's like, no, people are bad. And that's what, understanding the group dynamic here, we see that the motivators and whatnot, and the goals within this group have shifted so much that like there's a mutiny about to happen, that kind of thing. Like he'll be able to pick up on that stuff where she's still kind of holding on to like, no, we're following the code, we're following the NASA rule book here, and he's like, no, that rule book went out the window when we found a ship in the ice.
Yeah, I think these two might be kind of like, maybe she's the main protagonist. It sounded like it, and then he's kind of a secondary protagonist, because I don't want him to be a stereotypical, just like foil her and just like, listen, girl, you don't know what you're talking about.
No,
like, but I think it's more like you're saying he's
I think the romantic,
he's the other side to her coin.
Really helps sell that relationship as not being like, listen, girl, and he's like talking down to her. He's just more of like, hey, you're in charge here, but like, this is what I see is happening. And she's still kind of, again, holding on to this idea that, that humans are going to act a certain way. He's like, we just realized we live in a universe that does not abide by the rules that we thought it abided by. And you're thinking, the one thing I do know, no matter what, is that human nature is crazy as well. I don't know. I'm just, again, I'm reaching a little bit because I don't have the plot specifics, but I know.
I like where we're going with it. I feel like another character could be a medic, because I could see. Oh yeah. At some point,
he could be a medic. That's true. Like if just thinking about the relationship.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that guy. I'm just saying a character could be a medic, because I think there would be room for someone to start going, I don't know, a little crazy or not feeling well, and toy around with that. Like they spend too much time with certain objects, or they spend too much time over at the ice, and they start,
their teeth are falling out, their hair's falling out,
Yeah, they don't turn like full zombie alien or anything like that, but
I'm definitely getting Prometheus vibes with that. Like you get mutated or whatever. I don't know if we want to go that hard. I like the idea of ghosts, like that being the kind of the thing that we're shooting for, rather than full blown xenomorph. I'm implanting you with an alien, and that's what makes you go crazy.
I like the idea of I like even the name ghosts, that becomes a name that a vernacular that they use. Maybe there's, when the dust is blowing, like they can kind of see, not like full humanoid, but they can see that around there's something that's obstructing the dust. Like dust blows around these things.
That's cool.
I was thinking, so there's,
have you ever seen James and the Giant Peach?
Yeah.
This is
just like James and the Giant Peach.
It is. The centipede is the guy.
The ship that's underwater. Remind me of that part? I don't remember when.
So they're actually going for the compass. Holy smokes. Wow, this was buried deep in there. They're going for the compass. At some point, it like falls overboard. They have a compass because they're flying. I can't even remember where. But all the bugs and James decide to go into the ocean to get it. And as they're down there, they realize there's a ghost ship, and it's got like a Viking. So it's a Viking ship, which is actually kind of cool. Actually, might be cooler than the Antarctic explorers. Although I like the Antarctic explorers because of the cannibalism angle, that if you were to eventually bring them up, it's like they got so deformed, so beyond human nature, and I mean, like given over to human nature, that eventually they just become animalistic. The worst of human nature, that is. As I think Abraham Lincoln was the one who said, "Beyond the angels of our better nature." Anyway. So they end up being like zombies. I know that we said that early on, but like skeleton zombies that show up. And they've been like roaming the Martian landscape this whole time.
So they're basically humans that have gone mad, and they have been influenced by some other entity to make them live on Mars. Yeah. Basically. Okay. So because I was actually having the thought, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, of these entities. I guess the question is like, how intelligent do we make these entities? Because part of me was thinking, oh, what if one of these humans is possessed or copied or something? So at some point these ghosts or whatever are conversing. Maybe this is like the climax of the movie, conversing with them, but I don't know if we want to make them that intelligent, or if we want to make them more instinctual, beast-like.
I think,
you know,
I don't know, it's more scary to make them intelligent, but just totally evil, so that they can think and work and whatnot. I guess jumping ahead, with the goal of the entities, if we want to go this route, we can obviously, this level hasn't fully solidified, but do they want to get off Mars? And do they want to get back to Earth and like take over Earth? That feels a little big. We're not really telling.
Yeah, I don't want to make it that big. I think there's a lot of stories like this where aliens are, in the end, trying to assist Earth in some capacity. And a twist we could do is maybe that is how they view things, but to the Earthlings, it doesn't seem like that. Like, their idea of help is somewhat destructive or barbaric or something like that. Because I don't want to just be like, we want to just conquer your planet. I guess we could, or it's not even that. If we wanted to make them full evil, we could just be like, they want to get there, and not that it's like, and then world domination. They just kind of want to intermingle and be present on the planet and kind of hide there and be part of it without anyone knowing.
We're already on Earth. We own you. And their little eyelids, like,
Yeah. I don't know if you saw Marvel's Secret Invasion, but it's got kind of vibes. I ended up seeing it.
I know about the Skrulls.
It wasn't the best.
I'm a Marvel boy. I know about the Skrulls.
Yep. That they're just there. They're just kind of around. And in some instance, I guess, based on the show, I've not read anything, but based on the show, sometimes they're peaceful, sometimes they're not, but they're just there. I could see that kind of being a thing of like, maybe, and this is all, we're still in spitball territory. Whatever these entities, these ghosts, were working on technology years ago, and they like basically opened a portal, and all of these dudes and their dogs and their sleds flew out, and
they were able to breathe on Mars. So there's that.
Yeah, I know. So we established that there's no humans or anything, and there's no, and I guess you said there was an exploded dog, but if there was no organic matter, and then they, I don't know, can study it or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think through. So what instigates these guys? Yeah.
This might help, because I think getting back to our characters will unlock all of the necessary things, because theme is structure, and your characters are your theme, just being played out in various scenarios. And so I think having the two captains be contrast, where I think, so there's two things that popped in my mind. The female captain, who's the head of this, our treasure planet cat lady, she is the head of the current NASA expedition, obviously, but they come to find out more about the captain of the Franklin expedition, or whatever it is, like fake Antarctic expedition that ended terribly. And she's trying to stop that from happening to her people. I think that's the reality. Like, those are the two things that are in contrast that play each other out. You throw in our centipede from James and the Giant Peach character, the mechanic, who's just maybe a little goofy. That's the centipede character. Right? He's a little goofy, and yet is like very realistic. And he kind of he laughs because he knows how broken the world is. That's kind of his personality. And can stare terrible things in the face and whatever. I like that type of character. I honestly, as a kid, based my whole personality on the centipede from James and the Giant Peach. So
that explains so much, Zach.
I emptied my mind of everything else, like SpongeBob, and it's like just the James and the Giant Peach centipede guy. I think his name is just Centipede. Anyway, but yeah, you contrast those two things. That's the foil anyway. Like, that's in superhero movies, the classic version is the superhero and the supervillain. They have a similar origin story, except the supervillain is kind of overcome with his pain and trauma that has caused him to become a villain, and so he decides to take it out on the world, as opposed to the hero who's using his position now for good. And you see the shadow of the superhero in the supervillain, that like really, as the Joker put it, one little push and you would go crazy too. Like, you would be just like me. So the idea is that we contrast these two captains. And I think maybe the only person alive from the original expedition is the captain. And so,
Gotcha.
he's somewhere that maybe that's where the compass is pointing.
So but when you say the original expedition, you mean the one on Earth?
Yeah, the Antarctic one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I like that. Okay. I like the compass pointing to this guy, because then that introduces this kind of wise character that helps illuminate things. And somehow he's been kept alive by
the aliens, whatever they are, Yeah, I think I think the aliens
or it's the aliens possessing the old captain.
Yes.
And
yes.
He's possessed by the aliens, and maybe aspects of it is still the human guy, but a lot of it is this new guy, and they're kind of formed. He's like, oh, I have memories of this guy and his expedition, and it's crazy. And
that's cool.
So I guess we need to just figure out, obviously we have this kind of entourage of characters that will be various.
Oh, I got it. Go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to say they're going to be various characters, maybe even caricatures. I don't want to make them caricatures, but with this many people, you're going to have.
It feels a little like Atlantis.
People.
You remember Atlantis?
Yes.
Where the characters, it's like you got the mechanic, you got the cook, you got the medic. I think that's a cool, like you just take those characters and you update them a little bit, and it's fun.
Yeah. And then you have basically your head mechanic, who's one of our main guys, and then you have the captain, who is basically our protagonist. Mm-hmm. And then what do they want? Because obviously when they're there, they're very interested in this stuff. I would imagine that what she wants is to save everybody.
Yes. So that's actually, I think the major theme is that she wants to save everybody. The old captain of the Antarctic exploration didn't. So there's your contrast right there. And then thirdly, you come to find out that the aliens didn't either.
Oh.
And so
what do you mean by that?
So part of their like save their life mission, Mars is a dead planet, but part of their save their life mission was to like make a portal to this other planet. And all it did was just suck in this ship or whatever. Like it just opened up in the Antarctic, and it's a dead place. And basically it's this idea of like, is it worth it to go explore, or like without exploration, your civilization will die, but also something along those lines. Like I'm playing in my head with those three overlapping, and they each have a three kind of reaction to the major theme, which is exploration, which is failed leadership. Are we just walking into extinction? Like, is everybody just walking into extinction? What do you do with that? Like, I don't know. There's something to be said about the contrast between all three. I'm trying to figure out what that is, because the aliens are obviously gone too, or at least not present enough.
Yeah. Or like some of them are kind of like ghostly there, and then maybe the most concrete one is the one who's in the captain's body, or in the explorer's body. And I do like that idea. I imagine some line, whether it's given from the explorer alien or something, of it's like, it's not all for naught. We do this even if we don't succeed to help the people behind us do it. We have to always be exploring. We have to choose bravery. We have to reach outward, because that's how we make the world bigger or something. Like I could see that kind of being the theme, because she's thinking, I need to save everyone. Maybe a few of her crew die. And I think that's kind of based on what we're talking about, the female captain, that's kind of her foil. Like the thing she's struggling with is maybe a type of a savior complex. And then she's struggling towards the end, because she's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? Like, you didn't make it home. And the guy, the explorer, didn't make it home. It's like, what are we even doing here? And then some sort of wisdom from either the mechanic boyfriend or husband or whoever that is, or that it was like, it's not pointless. kind of like that's the point that they're driving home, that it's like it's this isn't pointless. Even if there's sacrifices made, we're still, I don't know. I think that's kind of the direction this is going, to encourage her.
Yeah, we have to really sit down and crunch through, like, what are we trying to compare between these three groups of people: the aliens, the Antarctic guys, and the astronauts, which is cool because as a fan of Antarctic history, that's NASA studies Antarctic explorers because of them living in isolation and being gone for so long and living off of rations and whatnot, and what happens when missions that are far away from home go wrong. So it is really a cool way to kind of knit that connection together and dramatize that connection. Like what happens when stuff goes wrong when you're out on the frontier. But maybe this is like the furthest planet that these aliens were able to get to, and maybe they had a teleporter and it broke, and that's basically what happened. Is like providentially untimely for the Antarctic guys, but it like latched onto them on the magnetic pole. They happened to be like right there, and it snatched them up. And it kind of entangled their two parties, and so there's some alien ships over there, that never made it out of the Antarctic because they weren't prepared for it. I don't know, something along those lines.
I feel like the conclusion could be the rescue attempt, whether it's even just the girl and her boyfriend or something, is like they repair or they work on this teleporter, and that's their way home. Like when chaos is ensuing and part of the crew is going crazy and stuff, and maybe the alien's like, yeah, we were almost there, and then that's where like the mechanic dude can shine. He's like, give me a crack at it, and like use him and the alien work together to like get it. And that's the kind of, I just imagine, I don't know if they could hone it in, and they just, I don't know if it's just the main two or if it's a few more. Like if they just got beamed and like blasted, and they just like appeared knocking over chairs in Houston, like in the office in Houston or something like that.
I was thinking
they
would go to the Antarctic and they would be in their spacesuits in the Antarctic.
It's very gravity kind of ending where they just, the conclusion is they just touch down on Earth. And I think that
they
could
walk
work
out of a blizzard and the Antarctic Research Center down there finds them, and they're like, what in the world? The Zach Lovelace ending, if we can kind of, hit the pedal,
entertain it a little bit.
Yeah, is that they make it back. The mechanic is mortally wounded, so he ends up dying in Antarctica, and the captain herself then is alone marching in the snow. So she's in a very similar position as the Franklin expedition guy, as the Antarctic guy. So he's like the last remaining person. So there's this idea of like leadership on the frontier, and like what happens? Does she actually end up surviving? What is the point of survival? Maybe is kind of a good question to ask.
Okay, with that, because that's almost her. It's her redefining in that moment what it means to be a leader. Because I think she thinks that it just means that she needs to protect her crew and save all her crew, which that is part of it. But then her her being the last one and still pressing on is kind of like, are you still a leader even when you have no one to lead?
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's an interesting thing for her to develop. Like she presses on because she's like, I need to tell.
Yeah, it could just end with her. You could take it one way or the other, which I kind of like. It just presses on with her disappearing in the blizzard. Someone in a spacesuit in a blizzard is a pretty interesting image.
Yeah, I do like the idea of I don't know how because either like he dies and she just walks off into the blizzard and that's the end. But I do like the visual of like the research center. They like look out and they see like a silhouette of something, and it's a full astronaut in a spacesuit.
Yes, exactly.
That's just a really cool visual.
It is. There's something even, this is the theme oftentimes with, like in the show, The Terror, about this type of thing, as well as a couple of other books and stuff that I've read about man's hubris against nature. And I think that's a really compelling theme here, because you have the height of technology, which is what the Antarctic explorers, their ships were the best that had ever been made. And I was reading something the other day, they were saying that it was like a space shuttle. Yeah, they were made out of, well, the one that I'm most in love with is the Shackleton expedition in 1912, I think, where they get stuck in the ice, the ship gets crushed and it sinks, and they have to get off of the ice pack, the ice floe, and make their way back to civilization. And Shackleton said that his mission, the captain, his mission was, it went from crossing the Antarctic shelf for the first time, because the pole had already been discovered, and the mission became get all my men back alive. And he ended up doing it. They spent like 2 years out on the ice, but he ended up getting each of his men back with a few less toes, and fingers, from frostbite and stuff. But he ended up doing it, and that's the ship. The Endurance was the name of the ship. Was made out of green heart, which is like the hardest wood on Earth. But the Franklin expedition, which was 80 years before that, had like internal heating and all sorts of like really cool modern technology for the time. So just saying technology being a thing, and then technology doesn't help you. Like technology, obviously it helps you, survive, but like ultimately it's a symbol of man's hubris that it's going to be slowly stripped away. And all that's left is, and that's actually the alien is like the last thing I could do was my race. Like the only thing I could do is go into this other guy. The last refuge was for me to take refuge in him. And maybe that's like a fight that happens, is that the alien wants to go into a new host, a fresher host, and like wants to enter the mechanic guy. A fight happens. He gets mortally wounded, or maybe mortally wounds himself to stop himself from being possessed or whatever. He's like, "Nuh-uh, you ain't getting in me."
It could be interesting. I like the beats of the story. And I know we're running long on time,
we're good.
But it could be something that he's like, if this alien explorer, the last alien explorer, is like, hey, I think if you're a mechanic with my know-how and your skills, I think we could fix this thing, but I'm going to have to like, I need to be possessing you. Like we need to work in tandem. It's like, but he's like, the thing is like, once that happens, I can't undo that. Like we're going to be stuck. Like if I leave, it'll kill you. So it's like, maybe that's the trade-off. Like, I don't know. I do like him dying in the Antarctic, I think. So I don't know if I want to completely erase that, but that's another alternate where it's like he sacrifices himself in that way to save the captain and potentially some other crew.
I think
something like that.
That's great. And I think that actually unlocks a theme in my mind about survival is about self-sacrifice. Like if you truly want to survive in the most harsh environments, it's about self-sacrifice. So the Franklin expedition guy, they died because he ultimately wanted glory. They just kept trying to find the pole, find the Northwest Passage, whatever it was in the Arctic or Antarctic region. And so that hubris, that pride is what did him in. The alien, he doesn't sacrifice himself for his crew. He literally like finds a different way to survive and like eats his crew and then gets inside the body of this other guy, like eats the rest of the crew members and then possesses the captain. And then finally at the end, our captain has to sacrifice herself to ensure the survival of her crew.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying is the mechanic would sacrifice himself so that she can go home. But I do like that.
I see what you're saying.
Like,
I see what you're saying. And yeah, like that's just something that thematically seems to be taking shape.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and maybe we have like a third character,
expendable.
That's also like, or they're like semi, like also protagonists, like another female, like, I don't know, scientist or something that's like also in this stuff. Like, and maybe she's the one that makes it back. Maybe the mechanic, like the leader of the mechanics and the leader of the captain sacrificed himself. And then it's just like one random person makes it back to tell the story.
I like that. I think it makes sense setup and payoff wise for the person who is least likely to survive, the person who's most cynical, basically. That's why I think it should be the mechanic, if anything, that he's just like, no, and the captain is like, you have to go, and then he gets sent over to into the Antarctic, and then they find him. Yeah, they find him like kind of passed out in the snow. He's like stumbling around, and they take off the helmet, and and at the end he opens his eyes and you realize he's been possessed by the alien.
Bum, bum, bum. No, I think this is good. I think obviously without knowing like all of these characters and all of the beats, like that's going to be the defining thing of who goes home. Mm-hmm. And obviously we don't have time, but I do think that is the point. Like one of them goes home.
Yes.
Whether it's the mechanic, whether it's the captain, whether it's like some other person.
A good reference would be Matt Damon in Interstellar. Mm-hmm. For the alien / Franklin expedition captain, that they find him in a quasi state of suspended animation, and at first he seems very helpful, and then it comes to realize he's like, at this point, I would want to go back and watch that scene again and study that portion of that movie, because it seems like it has a lot of common themes with Interstellar. I would just want to make it more of a human story, less about like, oh, mankind. I know it was about Matthew McConaughey, but and him getting back to his kids, but this idea that humans will do anything to survive. And that's what I like about our contrast with the alien. When we find him, he's not even evil, or maybe he's been driven to the point of being that way. Like you get kind of an idea of what he would have been like at full strength. Yeah. And he ends up like it's about survival just for him specifically, not for his race. Because that would be the idea of the alien race taking over. That's like the schlockier version of the idea that they want to take over the world, so they want to get back and this kind of stuff. And he's like, no, I just want to survive. And so taking that central theme of like, I want to survive versus what does it look like for us to survive? The highest thing, as Jesus Christ himself would say, the greatest thing for a man to do is lay down his life for his friends. That you take that with the captain, and I think that's the captain's call. Is that she's like, she leaves the mechanic in charge and is like, no, like we've been duped. This guy is not helping us. And whatever magical things happen to put them in more danger. I think that's the situation that they're in going into the end, where they're like, Earth isn't going to be able to make it out here to save us for a couple of years or whatever. Or maybe Earth is, since they found aliens out there, Earth is basically, some higher governmental people have just said, let them die. For the sake of keeping that a secret.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting too, because if they know no help's coming, then it's like, we're on our own. We've got to figure this out.
That's what the mechanic would figure out way before the leader, way before the captain. He would be like, honey, they're not coming out. And that she denies it for a while and then realizes, because again, it's about self-preservation. This idea that even the governmental people are like, to preserve the people of Earth and their way of life, we don't want them to know that this type of thing exists. Which, given everything with aliens in the news now, I don't know if that's even kind of a rote point of view to take. But you know what I mean? Like, let's just pretend like aliens are real. I don't personally think they are, but let's pretend like they are, and the government has just told us that they are real. Nope, it did not disturb anything on Earth. Everyone is just like, all right, whatever. Why is gas so expensive?
Yeah. I think we're near the end of our time, but I like this story a lot. I think this went way different than the direction I thought it would when I introduced a compass into this story. We really built a story, and there happens to be a compass in it.
Yeah, I think that would be figured out. That's like you said before, it just points to the captain. It has a very specific use, but it's not like the point is the compass.
It just helps. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the point of these prompts. They don't have to be the main plot point. Like if they are, then cool. But if they're not, then
I would have never thought of this without that. And then the fact of it being a compass and my own love of history, specifically the Antarctic exploration history, you take that, and that's what, I mean, I fell in love with that way faster than I probably should have.
No, I like it. I like the direction you help steer it. Nice work. I'm trying to brainstorm some rough titles, some rough standing titles for this.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking a few things like along the lines of like Found on Mars or Expedition Into the Red or something like that.
Yeah, something with red. It's very popular with Mars movies. I think whatever the name of the ship is that they find in the ice, I think would be.
Yeah.
Which that I'm borrowing that a little bit because that's the show The Terror, which it takes like a magical, realistic version of the telling of the Franklin expedition. The ship that they're on is called The Terror. So
the Terror.
It's like the actual real name of the ship, but you could come up with something, some crazy Latin term that's ominous and whatever that they would have felt good about naming a ship after, but I think that would be the place that I would look anyway. Just because I think the red thing is a little overplayed. And I would want it to be about survival. I would maybe even look at poetry from the time period. I can imagine the possessed captain at the end who's like, I like the idea that he's basically a mummy, that his skin is blue and he's like all frozen and everything, and he like moves really slow and his eyes open, and it's like, oh, they're clearly alien eyes, he's been living inside of him or whatever, and it's like he hasn't had to talk in centuries. A while ago I had a ship name. Oh, I know what it is. Let's see, I'm looking it up. Okay, I'm looking up some of my notes here. There's a ship name that I thought of called Invidia. Invidia, which I think is Latin for looking upon, having an evil eye. So to look against, to look in a hostile manner. I think that's kind of an interesting, and it's envy from the, in Latin, it's envy for the 7 deadly sins. So, but the ship's name would be the Invidia. And
the Invidia.
They find the Invidia out in the ice. And the idea is that your sinful nature is what comes out in survival territories. It strips away any of the niceties of civilization. And so you have two people looking at each other and seeing what the other has and wanting it so that they can survive, kind of thing. Again, more of a pessimistic title, but I think it gives you the opportunity to explore all of that. And you could land in an optimistic way. Like if the centipede mechanic guy ends up in the Antarctic at the research center, they take off his helmet and the movie just ends with him looking suspiciously at the guy. And he's like the researcher who's there, and he's in like a warm air conditioned hub, and he's looking around and he's just like, you don't realize how good you have it. Like if this wasn't here, we'd be at each other's throats.
I like that. All right. So maybe the Invidia is something. Yeah. Do you think just the Invidia is the placeholder title for this one?
Yeah, I would say the Invidia or Invidia. I don't want to totally rip off The Terror, but I think because The Terror is the name of the show.
You can't use the if someone else used the.
Well, it invokes it so closely, But something along those lines.
Also makes me think of the School of Rock, Actually, I think it's just School of Rock. I remember them discussing that in length, though, in a behind the scenes of if it was the or not.
That's
funny. It's a big question.
Yeah. It is. But Invidia I like because that way it's not just related to the ship. Because if you put the, it's obviously a possessive.
What about Into Invidia?
That's
like
cool.
It's like the expedition, like because they're kind of diving into this past ship and trying to figure out what's going on.
I like
Into
that.
Invidia.
Into Invidia. Plus, that it reminds me of Ad Astra, the Brad Pitt space movie where he goes to find his dad. It's Brad Pitt in space with daddy issues, and that the alliterative space exploration thing is kind of cool. So it's pulling from all of these things. Yeah, I think this is an idea that I would write for sure.
I like it, man. We'll put our stamp of approval on it. I like where we came to. I like this podcast because we really get to some weird ideas based on some very rudimentary starting points.
Yeah.
We almost told a national treasure story.
We did. We
didn't.
Snatched a good idea out of the jaws of a Nicolas Cage movie.
When you moved it to Mars, I was like, okay, we found it. This is what it is.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No,
this removes it enough from all these other heist movies.
It's funny how that works. You definitely, ideas have like a gravitational pull, and it's because your mind wants something familiar. And so I was literally feeling like, I feel like I'm writing the Uncharted movie. I'm just like walking backwards into an Uncharted movie. But like you said, that's just the nature of the genre. It's the nature of any compass, that you ever see in a film. It's always related to like, oh, I got to get to this destination. And there's only so many things to pull on historically. So your mind wants to go there.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody, thank you for listening to StoryFellas. I'm very excited with this story that we ended up with, and I want to thank Zach for helping me work together to craft this story. It's always fun.
Thank you.
No, thank you, man. Thank you.
But yeah, Tommy, we like to end the shows with a show-stopping line. Give us a little bit of a taste of this film, Into Invidia, by giving us a line of dialogue. Can you come up with one?
Yeah, this would be a line that we get from the alien-possessed explorer during his moment of sharing who he actually is with the humans. And it would be something along the lines of, during my training, they taught me that leadership was about being noble and selfless, but in the end, it's the one that survives that writes the history books. Thank you all for listening to StoryFellas, a part of the Pemmican Studios podcast network. Check out our show notes for bonus material, links, and more. To find out more about our current projects, send us messages, and suggest ideas for the show, go to StoryFellasPodcast.com. If you liked what you heard, share the show with a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community. Until next time, go make and break those stories.